Hey there, my name is Anthony Romano, and today I'm going to tell you about how weight training actually works on a ketogenic diet. So I also have a video on the science of how energy production is created on keto, but this one's going to dive more into what energy sources you're actually using on keto weight training. So if you are new to the ketogenic diet, you might be new to the concept of fat adaptation. And fat adaptation is basically where your body, after about a month or two of keto dieting, will enter a state where it starts storing carbs in your muscles, even if you're not eating them. So basically it turns excess protein into carbs and any of the small amounts of greens you're eating into carbs. So once you're at that point, you're able to use carbs as energy and fat as energy. And you aren't able to do this when you're first getting adapted. So if you're new to keto, this won't happen and you won't have an increase in your performance until down the line. But after you get over that adaptation phase, you're going to have much smoother workouts, and I feel great on my workouts, and everybody I know and all the science shows that as well. So when it comes to what energy sources you're actually using, people are often asking me, oh, don't I need carbs to lift weights? Is fat able to be used as fuel for weight training? Or should I not let my heart rate go over a certain beats per minute or else I'll be using carbs? This is what I'm going to tackle in this video. And the quick answer is, rather than focusing on beats per minute, rather than focusing on all weight training is this or that, ketones and fat are much better used as fuel for aerobic activity. Okay, so this means while you're breathing, activities you can do while still breathing. And glycogen and carb energy is much better used for anaerobic activity. Now, this is all stuff I'm pulling from the Ketogenic Diet by Lyle McDonald. It's basically the Bible of scientific research on keto, in my opinion. And when you have this divide between anaerobic activity and aerobic activity, you basically have carbs are primarily an emergency fuel. So you have carbs as this last resort, fast burning energy, and fat as this moderate burning energy that can be used for 95% of your activities. So most of the weight training you're doing, most of the repetitions you're doing in the gym, almost all of the reps on an 8 rep max, on a 5 rep max, are going to be coming from fat if you're fat adapted. And for the people who are doing 1 rep maxes, most of the time that's going to be coming from carb energy because it's an anaerobic activity. 1 rep max is such a level of intensity that you're probably not able to breathe continuously throughout it, right? So just because you're not breathing during the activity doesn't mean it's necessarily anaerobic. It's more so about that level of intensity, okay? So if you're sprinting like crazy and you're not able to breathe that well during it, then that would be still under the category of anaerobic activity here. So you could still run very fast and have most of that fueled by fat. But the distinction you need to wrap your head around here is that the intensity of activity, if it's anaerobic, is going to require carbs. And if it is aerobic, your body's able to use fats and ketones for it. So the good benefit here is that when you're fat adapted, some studies have shown that even 1 rep maxes have been partly fueled by fat. So it makes you think about the purpose of carb energy and fat energy in an evolutionary context. Because if you think about tribal times and humans walking around and scavenging and performing at low to moderate intensity most of the day, they would be using fat as the fuel for that. And then for the times that a predator would come out and start chasing you while you're scavenging, that's when your body would raise the cortisol, start using the glycogen, start using the stored carb energy, because it's very fast burning. And it would basically allow you to get out of emergency situations, or in the situation where people would be lifting something so heavy that it would require that extra gear of carb energy. So even during the most intense lifts, even during 5 rep maxes, 8 rep maxes, anything within the bodybuilding realms of training, rep ranges, right? Because bodybuilding training is more so between 5 to 12 rep range and higher, and powerlifting training is more 1 to 4 rep maxes. When you're training within those areas, even the lowest rep ranges have been shown in certain studies to have been fueled by fat. It's just that predominantly the lower you get in rep range and the higher you get in intensity, right? Because that's what a lower rep range means. It means that you can only lift that weight once, 1 rep max, 2 times, 2 rep max. So the lower you get in reps and the higher you get in intensity, you're going to start recruiting more carbohydrates as energy. And if you're fat adapted, this isn't a problem. And this is why people who are fat adapted have no problem doing resistance training or HIIT training or interval training, because they have a balance of both the added benefit of carb energy being available for when they need it and fat energy always being available. Now, the last detail I'm going to throw in here is that when you are fat adapted, you are better able to use fat and carbs, not just fat. So there's a study I've thrown around in other videos where basically marathon runners were running marathons, and they had a fat adapted group and a carb adapted group, and the fat adapted group basically had better remaining amounts of glycogen in their muscles than the carb metabolism athletes, and they had much higher rates of fat burning. So what this basically means is, if you're fat adapted, you're going to be using fat majority of the time, and your body's only going to use carbs when it truly needs to. So before fat adaptation, you're not going to get any of that benefit. That's just the truth. You need to get adapted before you experience these benefits. But down the line, once you are in that state, your body's going to be better at using fats and better at using carbs. And this is why you're going to experience such a smooth experience with workouts. Now, as far as fat loss, I want to make a distinction here. I had somebody asking me, I can do HIIT then, so should I do that for fat loss? Now, you can do HIIT if you enjoy it. I do skipping, intense training, I play soccer, I do weight training, lots of other types of training. But if your priority is fat loss, you should prioritize low intensity steady state interval training. Or not even interval, but low intensity steady state training, because this is where you're going to be recruiting fat. That whole dynamic I just explained earlier will basically incentivize you to only want to do low intensity activity if your goal is fat burning. Because if you burn 200 calories and that's coming from pure fat, it's just going to be much better for you down the line if you're a better fat burning machine and your exercise is requiring you to get that energy from fat. So if you're doing sprints the whole time, you're going to be using more glycogen than you would be if you just did 20 minutes of incline treadmill walking while you watch some Netflix. Okay, so that's kind of the gist of this all. Where your energy sources are coming from on keto. Do you need carbs? How are carbs going to be used in a weight training context? How is fat going to be used in a weight training context? This should all have summed it up for you, or at least given you some sort of insight into how that all works. So if you have any more questions, let me know. I also have a free training plan, a free meal plan in the description if you want them, and you can also join my 60-day transformation challenge where you can possibly win some prizes. Thank you for watching. My name is Anthony Romano. Peace.